As we all know that we are studying space science, open elective course for all the non-DG students. So we are in a second unit. We are discussing about the solar systems. The topics so far we have studied from this unit solar system are formation of a solar system. We have studied the nebular theory, how the planets are going to be developed. The formation of a solar system is nothing but we are giving the birth to a new sun. We can say that we are just giving a birth to a small object. So here this formation of the planet is with respect to the elements and the dust particle. As we all know that when the hydrogen element fuse with the helium along with the dust particle, when the hydrogen element fuse with the helium along with the dust particle, it gives rise to in the development of a small core. That development is with respect to the nuclear reaction. The nuclear reaction takes place due to the friction, collision, and the gravitational force of attraction between these elements and the dust particle. And finally, we form a hot ball in the form of a core. So from the hot ball, we can able to develop the total mass of the star, or the total mass of the planet, or the total mass of the sun. So that we have studied from the nebular hypothesis, the formation of our solar system. The second topic which we have considered is the solar wind. The solar wind is nothing but the radiation which emitted from the hot core. The radiation which emitted from the hot core. Here the emitted radiation or the highly ionized radiation, emitted radiation or the highly ionized radiation, it in the form of plasma. It in the form of plasma. So as we know that the sun has high temperature at the inner surface. When the temperature circulates from the inner surface to the outer surface, the temperature of the medium stage by stage decreases, layer by layer decreases. So when the temperature reaches the outer surface of the medium, we can able to see that the value of the temperature is very much reduced than the core. So that's why we are able to see the sun radiation directly through our naked eyes. The reason for the radiation to be seen by our naked eyes is at the center we are having the huge temperature. When the temperature is passed from the core to the outer surface, so the temperature tends to reduce, and the temperature it is seen by our naked eyes as the radiation, as a visible photon radiation. So that we have studied in the second content, solar wind. And the nuclear system, nuclear reaction, as we know that we are having two types of the reactions. One is a nuclear fission and another one is the nuclear fusion. So our consideration for the formation of the solar system, the reaction is the nuclear fusion, not the fission. It's a nuclear fusion reaction. What is this nuclear fusion reaction? We all know that when the two lighter elements, that lighter elements are hydrogen and the helium. When these are two lighter elements are fused with each other, they will result in a bigger element. They will result in a huge element. So this is the nuclear reaction mechanism. So that we have studied. Then we studied the parameters for the sun and the parameters for the planets. As we know, we have classified the planets into the three types. And we have studied the differences among the three types. We have categorized the planets into the three regions in the solar system. First region, then the second region, and the third region. The first region are the first four planets. The second region are the remaining four planets. And the third region, the planets behind the solar system. The planet which behind the solar system are called as the dwarf planets. The planets are second stage. The planets are in the second stage are called as the gas planets. The planets are in the first stage are called as the terrestrial planets. So we have seen these three types of the planets. Then we talked about the fundamental laws in the solar system. So here in our syllabus, we are having nearly three different assumptions, three different scientific assumptions. One is the Bode's law, second one is the Kepler's law, and the third one is the Newton's law. As we know that the Bode's law explains the spacing between the planets. Bode's law explains the spacing between the planets. For this, we have taken an example, the distance between the Mars and the Jupiter. So in between these two planets, Mars and the Jupiter, there are n number of celestial bodies. There are n number of objects. There are n number of planets. That planets which located in between the Mars and the Jupiter are called as the dwarf planet. So why we are just calling this as a dwarf planet? Because the planet just mass is very small when compared to these solar system planets. So that's why it's called as a dwarf planet. So here this dwarf planet is orbiting in the asteroid belt. We are having two types of the belt as we have studied. One is asteroid belt and another one is the Kuiper's belt. The asteroid belt which takes place in between the solar system, Kuiper's belt which takes place in the surface which behind the solar system. So one the inside the solar system and another outside the solar system. Inside the solar system, it's called as the asteroid belt. Outside the solar system, it's called as the Kuiper's belt. So that we have studied with some example. Then we studied the Kepler's law of the planetary motion. So here Kepler's assumption is the orbiting motion of the planet in the solar system is a circular motion. The orbiting motion of the planet in the solar system is the circular motion. So this makes the drawback. That's why we have just considered some other assumptions that the motion of the planet in the orbit is not a circular one, it's an elliptical one. The controversy arises. So the merits and the demerits given by the various assumptions on the basis of the movement of the planets in the solar system. So that we have studied there in the Kepler's law of planetary motion. as we know, we are having three types of the laws for to explain the planetary motion. One is Kepler's first law. It defines the orbit of the planet around the sun or ellipse. In the Kepler's first law, it's shown that the orbit of the planets around the sun or ellipse with the sun at one of focus. With the sun at one of focus. So this will be the first law according to the Kepler's hypothesis. The second law of the Kepler's is the line from the planet. A line from the planet to the sun sweeps out equal area in equal time. Sweeps out in equal area in equal time. So this we have studied from the Kepler's second law, and from the Kepler's third law, in simple way we can say that P square directly proportional to A cube. P square can be written as T square. Instead of a P, we can use the symbol T. P square directly proportional to A square. So what is this P square? P square is the total orbiting distance. The total orbiting distance of the planet. It's the P square. A square is the semi-major axis cube of the semi-major axis. So these we have studied from the last class in the Kepler's laws of the planetary motion. Then we just know the Newton's assumption. So for today's class, we are going to consider Newton's law of gravitation, and we are going to found how this Newton's law of gravitation is going to correct the Kepler's laws. How we are going to deduce the Kepler's law from the Newton's law of gravitation. This we are going to see from this lecture, today's class. And also, we are going to determine the mass of Earth. We are going to determine the mass of Earth, and we are going to measure the mass of a planet with respect to the Earth. So for to measure the mass of the Earth and to measure the mass of the planet with respect to the Earth, we are going to consider two laws. One is Kepler's law and another one is the Newton's law. So with these two laws, basic two laws, Kepler's laws and the Newton's laws, we are going to determine the mass of the Earth, and also we are going to determine the mass of the planets which are orbiting the Earth. So for today's topic, we are going to study the Newton's law of gravitation and the corrections made on the Kepler's third law from the Newton's assumption. Then the determination of mass and the determination of the mass of the Earth, planet with respect to the Kepler's law of the planetary motion and the Newton's universal gravitational law. Let's start our today's class. First is the objective. Isaac Newton insight gave the world a new concept of nature. So we are studying a new concept which describes the gravitational force of attraction between the bodies in the universe. So each and every body or each and every medium has its own gravitational force of attraction and repulsion. When these forces are balanced, then we can see the results. When these forces are unbalanced, we can see the failures. We can see the failures. So Isaac Newton incised gave the world a new concept of nature. He describes the motion of all bodies under the action of external force. What he did, he described the motion of all bodies under the action of external forces. Action of external forces. We are going to see in details also what are the just forces and what the law is used to explain the gravitations. So these laws were protective because they made possible specific calculation that could be tested by observation. So here we are having a proof for all the results. We are given the clear estimation. We have given the clear measurement for all the things followed by the Newton's law of the gravitation. Here the Newton's law of motion used to deduce the Kepler's third law, used to reduce the Kepler's third law of the planetary motion. So our objective is to measure the Newton's law, With respect to this Newton's law, we are going to make some corrections in the Kepler's third law of the planetary motion. So this is the objective. So introduction. So here, as we all know the assumption, according to the author Sir Isaac Newton, he formulated the universal law of gravitation. We all know about this story. Newton, when he was sitting under an apple tree, he suddenly noticed an apple fell on his head. We all know that. When the author was sitting under an apple tree, he suddenly noticed an apple falling on his head. This started him to think about the universal gravitational law. So this makes him to think about the universal gravitational law. This apple which falls on his head stimulates him to create a new theory. It's called the universal gravitational law. So we know that when he was sitting under an apple tree, he suddenly noticed an apple falling on his head, fell on his head. Then he started thinking about the universal gravitational law. So from the various scientific assumptions, we know that from the various scientific assumptions, the story is not true. The story is not true, but it gives an element of what has happened. It gives an element of what has happened. See, according to the author Isaac Newton, he formulated the universal law of gravitation. We know the universal law of gravitation, that is Fg is equal to capital G into m1 m2 by r square. m1 is the mass of one body, m2 is the mass of another body. So when these are two body having some sort of a force, this force makes this body to attract with each other, and the distance between these two force, it's nothing but r. So the gravitational force according to the Newtons is given by G is equal to m1 m2 by r square. But the actual concept, what has happened here, the actual concept was when an apple fall from a tree, when an apple fall from a tree, its velocity changes. Its velocity changes. See, when the apple is there in the tree, when it's not fall down, the velocity is zero. Velocity is zero because there is no acceleration, there is no displacement, there is no movement. When there is no acceleration, when there is no displacement, when there is no any changes, we can say that the energy is stationary. So the velocity is zero. So when an apple falls from a tree, its velocity changes from a zero hanging on the tree. The velocity changes from zero as it is hanging on a tree and moves towards the ground. So it will starts to accelerate from one point to another. As we know that when it falls down, it starts to move from one position to the another position. So this acceleration is with respect to some energy. So from the Newton's second law, we can say that Newton's formulated three laws. Newton's first law, Newton's second law, and then Newton's third law. Then we are considering the Newton's second law. As from the Newton's second law, which causes the apple to accelerate. The force which makes the apple to fall down, it's called gravity. The force which makes the apple to fall down, it's called gravity, and the associated acceleration in it, it's called as the acceleration due to gravity. That's why we are writing as the G. The G is nothing but an acceleration due to gravity. Gravity which associated with the acceleration. It's nothing but a force of gravity. So this is the fundamental assumption of Sir Isaac Newton. So in the introduction part, we are just considering this assumption. According to the author, Sir Isaac Newton, he formulated an universal law of gravitation. He formulated a universal law of gravitation, that is Fg is equal to G into m1 m2 by r square. So this universal law of gravitation is just measured, is introduced from the following assumption, that is, when he was sitting under the apple tree, he suddenly noticed an apple falling on its head. Then he started assuming that the apple which was at rest, that time the velocity is zero. When the apple is just fell down, that time the velocity changes. So for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This is also in Newton's law. A body is under motion unless a force is applied on it. So if you want to pull a car, if you want to push a car, so we have to supply the force. Then only we can try to make that object to disturb from his position. So here the assumption is when it's at rest, there is no change. When it's under motion, there will be some changes. That motion will take place due to the force. That force is nothing but due to the change of velocity. So that's why he said that the force which makes the apple to fall down, it's called gravity. The force which makes the apple to fall down, it's called gravity, and the associated acceleration on it, it's called the acceleration due to gravity. So this is the Newton's assumption. This is the Newton's assumption. The same assumption we are following here in our solar system. How? The same assumption we are following here in our solar system. That is, we know that the orbit of the moon about this Earth, the orbit of the moon above the Earth could be the effect of the gravitation force. The moon is orbiting the Earth. The moon is orbiting the Earth. So this could happen only due to the gravitational force as the force of gravity. Due to the gravitational force as the force of gravity, that causes the change in the velocity of the moon orbiting the Earth. It makes the change in the velocity. As we already informed, as I already studied that when the horizon velocity is less than the gravitational force, then the object fall over the Earth, it's collapse. When the horizon velocity is more than the gravitational force, it will goes on and then it will collapse. So the horizon velocity should be in a balanced velocity with the gravitational force. When the horizon velocity is balanced to the gravitational force, then only the motion of the planet in proper way it will orbit the system. So that we are going to see here. So this is a mind map created to explain the Newton's law. We are going to see the Newton's three laws, basic fundamental three laws. First law, Newton's second law, and the Newton's third law. Let's see one by one. Then we start our concept. So according to the Newton's hypothesis assumption, from his first law, he explained that every object persists in its state of rest or equal motion in a straight line unless it is compelled to change the state by force imposing on it. Object will be under rest, stay at rest. The object will be under motion, will be stay under motion. So to make the object to be move from its one position to the another position, we have to apply the force. So the force only makes the object to change its position. That only we are just seeing here in the Newton's first law. See, to explain this Newton's first law, here we have taken a spacecraft rocket. Before firing, we know that the object in state of rest, airspeed is 0. The velocity is 0. There is no acceleration. Acceleration is not happens there. So there will be no any displacement. So when the object is at a rest, it will be remain at rest. Then we are just firing the engine. When the engine is fired, we know that the thrust increases from 0. So we are making some sort of energy to push the object from its initial state to some other state. So what we are doing, we are just supplying the force. We are giving the force. So when we fire the engine, what will be happens? The stress increases from 0. Weight decreases slightly as a fuel burns. So it means that it starts to propellant. It starts to move. So when stress is greater than weight, when the velocity of the object is more, then it will be start to accelerate. It will start to accelerate with respect to the mass. The net force is a positive upward. Rocket accelerate upward, the velocity increases. So this is the Newton's first law. So the Newton's first law states that the object is under rest will stay under rest. When the object is at motion, it will be under motion unless a stopping field will be acts on it. So for this, we have taken this as an example. The racket is at the rest. There, the airspeed is 0. The velocity is 0. When we started the engine, so the velocity changes. When the velocity increases, it will start to accelerate. It will start to accelerate. So here the acceleration is just towards the space. According to the Newton's second law, we know that the force is equal to mass into acceleration. Force is equal to mass into acceleration. So we can consider this as an example. Here we are having two objects, one with less mass and another with the huge mass. The first mass of the object is 400 kilogram. The second mass of an object is 40 kilogram. So we are having the equal persons here on the both side. The equal means they both are of equal weight. For example, 50 kilogram of weight for this person. Also the 50 kilogram of weight is for this person. So there is a equal just body pushing the different type of the masses, as we know that. So the force applied, how much of force we need to apply it for the huge mass, and how much of the force we need to apply for to make this a small mass to be accelerated. So the force is the mass into the acceleration. It depends on the mass. It depends on the mass, and it depends on the acceleration. Acceleration is nothing but a change in velocity by the time taken. So it's the second law of the Newton's hypothesis. Force is equal to mass into the acceleration. Newton's third law. So according to the authors of Newton, the third law defined that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For this, I have taken this one as an example. A person is just standing on the boat. When he tried to jump into the water, from the edge of the boat, we observed and we just know that the person will fall in this direction, in this forward direction. The medium where he is standing, it will goes in the opposite direction. It will goes in the opposite direction. So we know that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So here the action, it's fall. The reaction, it's the movement. So this is a cantilever principle. The mechanical students will all know that this be the cantilever principle. Cantilever means we will fix the just a rod at one end and we apply the force on the another end. What happens? The rod will not break, but the rod bends down up to its limit. So when we remove the weight, the rod came back to its original condition. So when we apply the force, then there will be the reaction. So this is the force. The force is equal to the reaction. When these two are balanced, then we can just achieve the measurements. So for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. See, we can see that here we have taken an aerospace racket. So the engine pushed upward. The engine pushed upward once we fired. Once the stress increases, when the velocity reaches the maximum, the engine moves in the upward direction. The exact flow pushes in the backward direction. So when these two are balancing with each other, then we can reach the just a medium to its desired position. We can make the medium to reach its desired position. So the Newton's three laws every object precised in its state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line unless it is compelled to change that state by forces impressed on it. The second Newton's law, force is equal to mass into acceleration. Force is equal to mass into acceleration. The third law, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So with these three laws, we are going to start our topic. How we are going to correct the Kepler's third law from the Newton's law of gravitation. So to correct the Kepler's third law from the Newton's law of gravitation, first let us see what is this Newton's law of gravitation. To explain this Newton's law of gravitation, I have taken a small image here. So this image is the moon is a satellite, natural satellite, which orbiting the Earth. The moon is a natural satellite which orbiting the Earth. So here we can just see that an apple is attracted towards the Earth. So it means that here we have taken the Newton's hypothesis. Newton's hypothesis. So as we know, according to the author's Newton's hypothesis, the force of attraction or the gravitational pull is with respect to some force. That only we are going to see here. So from this Newton's universal law of gravitation, we can write Fg is equal to G me m by r square em. So what is this G? G is the gravitational constant. G is the gravitational constant. So this gravitational constant suitable for all the planets who's orbiting the sun in the solar system. We can consider Earth and the Mercury. We can measure the formula. We can consider Earth and the Venus, hottest planet, and we can measure this formula. We can consider Earth and the Jupiter, the biggest planet. We can measure this formula. So for all the cases, it is proved that the gravitational constant remains constant. The gravitational constant remains constant for all the planets who's orbiting in the solar system. So the Newton's universal law of gravitation states that Gme, that is the mass of an Earth, mass of a moon, is inversely proportional to the square of the distance. Inversely proportional to the square of the distance between Earth and the mass. So what happens here? We are having a point object. So these point objects makes this separation. So from this end to this end, it's 1 r. From this end to this region is another 1 r. So the distance separation is just r square. See here, we can say that Newton's universal law of gravitation is every object in the universe attracts every other object with the force directed along the line of the center from the two objects. See, every object in the universe. So this is also one object, and this is also another one object. Every object in the universe attract two others. See, we can say that every object in the universe attract each other with the force, directed along the line. directed along the line of the center. Directed along the line of the center. See, from here to this point. So they have just measured the just axis line from the center of the planets. So from this point to this point, we have drawn a segment here, line here. So this shows that the just a line of the center, which directed the line of the center, which directed the force of the attraction between these two bodies. Force of attraction between these two bodies. So we can say from these assumption, the universal law of the gravity is every object in the universe attracts each other with the force directed along the line of the centers for the two objects. So here, it's directly proportional to the masses. It's directly proportional to the masses. The force, the Newton's gravitational force, directly proportional to the masses, and it's inversely proportional to the square of the radius. Inversely proportional to the square of the radius, that is a distance. So we can write Fg proportional to m1 m2 by r square. M1 is the mass of the earth, m2 is the mass of the planet, that is a moon, by the distance coverage, separation, r square. So next, by removing this proportionality and by introducing a constant, the constant is the gravitational constant, that is g. Then the equation becomes Fg is equal to capital G into m1 m2 by r square. M1 m2 by r square. So this is the Newton's universal law of gravity. The assumption just made here. The force attracted between these two objects in the line joining the center. So this is also the assumption. This assumption already we have seen. Here we are first, we just mentioned the too little momentum. Here the too much momentum and the perfect. So what is this three pictures narrates? The first figure shows that when the horizon velocity, when it's lesser than the gravitational force, when the horizon velocity is less than the gravitational force, due to the gravitational force of attraction, the object which we launched from the surface of the earth will not reach its desired point, will not reach its target, but instead of going to its target position, it will fall back and it collapse. So when the horizon velocity is lesser than, we have to note this point, when the horizon velocity is lesser than the gravitational force, then the medium collapse. The second assumption, the same object in the same surface of the earth, but when the horizon velocity is very much higher than the gravitational force, when the horizon velocity is very much higher than the gravitational force, what happens? It will goes on increases. It will goes on increases, and at one stage it will collapse. At one stage it will collapse. So this is the second assumption. The third assumption, the same earth, we are having the same mass. The mass is orbited on the surface of the earth, and we are going to launch that object to the space. Now, when the horizon velocity is equal to the gravitational force of attraction, when the horizon velocity is equal to the gravitational force of attraction, then the medium starts to move and it goes on move, but it should be move in and perfect orbit. So without making the collision, So we can say that when the horizon velocity is less, collapse. When the horizon velocity is also very, very more, then will collapse. When the horizon velocity is balanced with the gravitational force, when the horizon velocity is balanced with the gravitational force, then the medium will orbit in its own path. The medium will orbit in the path in the perfect manner, without any collision and without any distraction. So these only the Newton's assumptions. So here we can see that the Earth is at the center. So we have just launched some satellites. For example, we have launched the satellites from the surface of the Earth to the space. So the velocity of that medium should be balanced by the gravitational force. When the velocity of this medium is balanced with the gravitational force, then we can see that that satellite will orbiting in the path. The satellite will orbiting in its path. So that's the conclusions made by the Newtons. And here we are having the corrections also. So what is that correction? So that correction is very, very important here. So before going to see the corrections made by the Newtons in the Kepler's assumption, we have to know what is Newton's law and what is a Newton's assumption and what's the Newton's universal law of gravity. That only we had discussed here. The Newton's first law, the Newton's second law, the Newton's third law, then the Newton's universal law of the gravity. For to explain this universal law of the gravity, we have taken a small assumption. Now let us consider Newton's modification on the Kepler's third law. So here to explain this Newton's modification on the Kepler's third law, I have chosen only a particular point. That particular point alone going to explain the merits and the demerits of the assumptions. So according to the author Kepler's, he stated that the sun is fixed at a point in space. The sun is fixed at a point in space and the planets revolves around it. So this is the Kepler's hypothesis, Kepler's assumption. So he made and he said that the sun is fixed at a point in space and the planet revolves around it. But Newton realized that Newton, not only the Newton, but there are many scientific just assumptions made by various scientists regarding this assumption. But we are discussing about the Newton's modification. So we have to talk about the Newton's laws. So Newton realized that the planet-sun system, the planet-sun system does not orbit around a stationary medium. The planet-sun system does not orbit around a stationary sun. So what he did, he proposed that both the planet and the sun orbited center of the mass from the planet-sun system. Then it started him to stimulate and he modified the Kepler's third law of the planetary motion. We know that the third law of the planetary motion is T square directly proportional to A cube. T is the period of revolution, time period of oscillation, total complete movement, and A is the semi-major axis. So T square directly proportional to A square is the Kepler's formula. So this Kepler's formula is going to be modified with the Newton's assumption. How we are going to modify this with the Newton's assumption? To modify the Kepler's third law, we are going to consider the Newton's universal law of the gravitation. We are going to consider the Newton's universal law of the gravitation. So with this, we will stop for today's class. So before going to just conclude, and we have to just see what we have seen so far. So we started with the introduction. Here the introduction is the Sir Isaac Newton's assumption and the formation of the universal law of the gravitation. As we know that when an object is just falling down from one point to the another point, the object will be accelerated with some velocity. When the object is not disturbed, then there will be no any velocity. When the object is under motion, that motion is only with respect to some force of pulling. That force of pulling here, it's a gravitational force which makes the object to fell down. So with this, he formulated a gravitational law, G m1 m2 by r square. So G is the universal constant, m1 m2 mass of the objects, and r is the distance separation between the objects. Newton's formulated basically three laws: first law, second law, third law. So first law, we know that every object remain in its state of rest unless an equal and opposite force will act on it. So when we are not disturbing the object, it will remain in its own place. When we are supplying the force to that object, it will start to accelerate. It will start to displace. So that is the Newton's first law. Newton's second law is the follow of the first law. Once the object it tends to move with respect to the velocity, what happens? The mass and the acceleration will be takes place. That is the movement of the mass and the acceleration. Acceleration change in the velocity with respect to the time. For this, we have taken the example, a huge body and the small body. For the huge body, we need to supply more energy to displace. For a small body, we can give a small amount of energy for the displacement. Newton's third law, every action, there is an equal and the opposite reaction. If there is a force applied on the body, then there will be a reactant in the body. This will be the equilibrium condition. This will be the balanced condition. When these are to be the balanced one, then only we can able to measure the changes in the body. Action, definitely there will be some reaction. Newton's universal law of gravitation. So Newton's universal law of gravitation, we know that every object in the universe attracted by some other objects. Every object in the universe is attracted by some other objects. So this attraction is only due to the gravitational force of the attraction. Gravitational force of the attraction. So for this, we have just taken this image as an example. Here the attraction is made between moon and the earth. Attraction made between the moon and the earth. So the moon is orbiting the earth. Moon is orbiting the earth on its own path without any collision, without any distraction, deviation. So this thing is a forces takes place on the two mediums. The force of attraction and the force of repulsion, here it's in a balanced one with respect to the gravitation force. The momentum is too high, it will goes on increases. It will goes and then collapse. When the momentum is too low, suddenly collapse. When the momentum is equal to the gravitation force, when the momentum is equal to the gravitation force, momentum is nothing but here horizontal velocity. When the horizontal velocity is balanced with the gravitation force, then it will goes on move, but in its orbit without any collision. Kepler's modification by the Newton's assumption. So according to the authors Kepler, sun is fixed at a point and the planets revolve around it. So these the just discrepancies made by the author Kepler to formulate new changes in the Kepler's formula. That new changes is formulated with respect to the Newton's universal law of gravitation. So it's called as Newton's modification on the Kepler's third law. So with this, we just conclude our today's class.